ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணிடலாமே.
Yeah, I can start now.
हरि ओम सर्वेभ्यः नमस्कारः। अद्यतन संस्कृतवाणी कार्यक्रमार्थम् आगतवन्तः सर्वेभ्यः च कृते मम हार्दिक स्वागतं व्याहरामि। अद्यतन कार्यक्रमे संचालिका रूपेण आगता अस्ति कुमारी सावित्री भगिनी। सा करूर महादानपुरे वसति। संस्कृत भारत्याः पत्राचार परीक्षाः समापितवती, अपि च संस्कृतं पाठयन्ती अस्ति। She has great passion for music and harmonium, expertise in drawing and craft, also interested to learn things like Amarakosha and some books of Sanskrit literature. Savithri Bhagini.
धन्यवादः भगिनी। नमस्तभायै नमः सर्वेभ्यश्च। अस्मिन् सुन्दरे सायंकाले अद्भुते अवसरे संस्कृतवाणी कार्यक्रमार्थं वयं सर्वे अत्र सम्मिलिताः स्मः। सर्वेभ्यः सर्वेषां कृते मम हृदयपूर्वक नमस्काराः, स्वागतम्। Here's a hearty welcome, big and enough encompass to you all. The world is full of diamonds and gems, and we have some of them here today. It's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you all. Welcome all. संस्कृते वदामः एकं विषयमस्ति मङ्गलाचरणविषये। मङ्गलादीनि मङ्गलमध्यानि मङ्गलान्तानि शास्त्राणि प्रथन्ते इति आदिभगवद्भाष्यकारवचनम्। आदिभगवद्भाष्यकारः पतञ्जलिमुनिः। पतञ्जलिमुनेः वचनं प्रमाणयन् शिष्टाचारपरिप्राप्तं विशिष्टदेवता ब्राह्मण नमस्कार रूपं मङ्गलं वक्तव्यम् इत्यस्ति। अतः को वा भवतु अस्माकं कार्यक्रमः, तस्य शुभप्रारम्भाय प्रप्रथमं प्रार्थनां कुर्मः इति। अतः अस्माकं प्रार्थनां श्रुत्वा भगवान् अपि अस्मान् आशीर्वादयतु इति सम्प्रार्थये। इदानीं प्रार्थनां कर्तुं श्रीमती रानी चित्रा मातरम् आह्वयामि। So nothing will incomplete without showing our gratitude towards God. So I welcome Srimati Rani Chitra ma'am to show the gratitude towards God. Srimati Rani Chitra was born in Salem, educated and brought up in Mayiladuthurai and Chennai, married and living in Mumbai for 25 years. She is a Carnatic cinema music stage singer, also sings for Bharatanatyam shows, also dubbing artist, translator, debater, educator, Tamil language expert, QC expert, and worked in many TV channels and advertising companies. She has sung in many music concerts in Mumbai and other cities and abroad, including the Jakarta Tamil Sangam, also choreographed for concerts and many more. She also sings movie songs in Tamil, Hindi, Marathi, Telugu, Malayalam languages on stage. Rani Chitra ma'am participated in SPB's Innodu Paattu Paadungal program. In December 2021, she awarded with the title of Isai Tamil Perarasi at the Bharatiya Century celebration organized by 5 foreign organizations. She is also a panel speaker and has participated in panel shows on many TV channels. Actress Revati, Ku Jnana Sambandham, T. Rajender, actress Yuvarani, L.R. Ishwari, poet Pirai Sudan, etc. have participated in panel discussion. This is an august achievement, and we are so glad to have you in this wonderful evening, ma'am. I call upon Srimati Rani Chitra ma'am to do the prarthana.
Thank you so much for your information. அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். எனக்கு சன்ஸ்கிருத்தில் பேச தெரியாது, ஸோ தமிழில் பேசுகிறேன். இந்த அற்புதமான ஒரு மேடையை அமைச்சு கொடுத்ததுக்காக முரளி சார் அவர்களுக்கும் வைஷாலி மேடம் அவர்களுக்கும் என்னுடைய மனமார்ந்த நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். அனைவருக்கும் இனிய மாலை வணக்கத்தை தெரிவித்து கொண்டு இந்த பிரார்த்தனை கீர்த்தனையை பாட இருக்கிறேன். இந்த கீர்த்தனை காமாட்சி காமகோட்டி பீட்டவாசினி. இது வெள்ளிக்கிழமையாக இருக்கிறதுனால அம்பாள் பேரில் இந்த பாடலை பாடுகிறேன். இது ராகம் சிம்மேந்திர மத்தியமம், தாளம் ரூபக தாளம், முத்துசாமி தீக்ஷிதர் அவர்களுடைய கிருதி. காமாட்சி காமகோட்டி பீட்டவாசினி மாமவ காமாட்சி காமகோட்டி பீட்டவாசினி மாமவ காமாட்சி காமகோட்டி பீடவாசினி மாமவ காமாட்சி காமகோட்டி பீடவாசினி மாமவ காமாட்சி समस्त साम्राज्यदायिनी समस्त साम्राज्यदायिनी सद्गुरु गुगजननी समस्त साम्राज्यदायिनी सद्गुरु गुगजननी कामाक्षी कामकोटि पीठवासिनी मामव कामाक्षी कमलेश सोदरी कमलाक्षी नारायणी कमलेश सोदरी कमलाक्षी नारायणी कमलेश सोदरी कमलाक्षी नारायणी नाद बिंदु कलास्वरूपिणी नाद बिंदु कलास्वरूपिणी कात्यायनी नाद बिंदु कलास्वरूपिणी कात्यायनी कामकल प्रदर्शिनी कामकला प्रदर्शिनी कल्याण गुणशालिनी कामकला प्रदर्शिनी कल्याण गुणशालिनी कामाक्षी कामकोटि पीठवासिनी मामव कामाक्षी कामकोटि पीठवासिनी मामव कामाक्षी நன்றி வணக்கம்.
Wow, that was wonderful, ma'am. धन्यवादः. अत्युत्तमम् आसीत्, अति मधुरम् आसीत्. Thank you once again, ma'am. इदानीं सुभाषितद्वारा स्वर्णसन्देशं वक्तुं श्री मुरली सुब्रह्मण्यन महोदयं प्रार्थयामि. Murali Subramanian ji is a petrochemical engineer, has 40 years of work experience, out of which 25 years in the top management. He is coordinating a few online forums which include Kural for Management and Jnana Ula. I welcome Murali Subramanian ji to share a golden message through Subhashitam.
Thank you, Savithri ji. पुस्तकस्था तु या विद्या परहस्तगतं धनं कार्यकाले समुत्पन्ने न सा विद्या न तद्धतम्. Knowledge which is in the books and verses and our own wealth kept under the control of others may not come handy in the time of need. So you will have zero knowledge and zero money in that situation. Abhyasa Sarini Vidya, that is, knowledge develops with practice. Buddhi Karmanu Sarini, that means intelligence develops as per the actions. So whatever good that we learn, we should practice. Acharyat Padam Adatte Padam Sishyaha Swamedaya Padam Sabrahmacharibhyah Padam Kalakramena Tu. Kalakramena Tu. That means one acquires 1/4 of his knowledge from his teacher. The second 1/4 through his intelligence and his own efforts. The third 1/4 comes from his friends, and friends means like what we are now learning from our forums. And the fourth part comes in the due course of time because of experience. Anega Shastram Bahuveditavyam. That means plenty of science and knowledge we have to learn. Correct? That is what we are doing now. But Alpasya Kala, we don't have time. We have limited time. So we should try to understand the essence of these studies. Yat Sarabhutam Tatupasitavyam. That means we have to learn only the essence of that through programs like what we are having in Samskrita Vani, Jnana Ula, Kural for Management, Tamil Genius, etc., etc., etc. Let us learn more and practice what we learn. Thank you.
Dhanyawada Haji. That was actually a golden message. Thank you once again. Now it's संस्कृते एक स्वागत गीतमस्ति. न किंचित् भावना भक्तिः न काचित् साधना शक्तिः परं श्रद्धा समञ्जलिभिः त्वदीयं स्वागतं कुर्मः इति वदामः. अतः इदानीं स्वागतभाषणं कर्तुं कुमारी साईप्रिया भगिनीम् आह्वयामि. Kumari Saipriya has completed BTech and working as a software engineer in Chennai, and she has completed the Samskrita Bharati's correspondent course and associated with them in teaching Sanskrit. Now I am handing it over to Kumari Saipriya for the welcome address.
नमस्सभायै शुभसायङ्कालः सर्वेभ्यः शोभकृतो नूतनवर्षशुभाशयाः अपि एतत् सायङ्कालसमयं शोभितुम् अत्र संस्कृतवाणी कार्यक्रमे मिलितवन्तः सर्वे अभिवादनी बहु सन्तोषम् अनुभवामि सुस्वागतम् सावित्री भगिनीं विशाली भगिनीं रानी चित्रा मातरं मुरली सुब्रह्मण्य महोदयः एतान् प्रथमं स्वागतं करोमि भगवद्गीतायाः पाठाः प्रकटितुम् आगतं शंकर कुमारः महोदयं श्लोकां वदन्तुम् आगतवन्तौ कुमारीं लेश्यां कुमारी टेश्यां च स्वागतं करोमि अद्य दिनस्य मुख्यप्रमुखः साईनाथ जगदीश शंभग महोदयम् अपि विशेष स्वागतं करोमि स्वागतं महोदयः मातंगी भगिनीं शिवकुमारः अय्यर महोदयम् अपि स्वागतं करोमि अन्य कार्यकर्तॄणाम् एतत् कार्यक्रम अलङ्कारितुम् आगतान् सर्वान् अपि उत्साहेन स्वागतं करोमि स्वागतं सुस्वागतम् I take pleasure in welcoming one and all to this wonderful session Samskrita Vani. धन्यवादः.
धन्यवादः भगिनी. Thank you once again. इदानीं Bhagavad Gita, lessons from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gitaयाः मङ्गलश्लोके एकस्मिन् भागम् अस्ति वदामि. पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् इति. The Bhagavad Gita, this 700 verse Hindu scripture that is part of the epic Mahabharata and dated to the second half of the first millennium and means song of the spirit, the divine communication of the truth realization. So today we have Shri Shankar Kumaran ji, who is an academician and has done his masters in Sanskrit and Yoga, Gurukulam alumnus, visiting faculty in Amrita University and life education course. Now I request Shankar Kumaran ji to voice out the lessons from Bhagavad Gita.
Everyone, namaskara. I would like to share one small information. Mr. Shankar Kumaran ji is on travel. So, in his place, Dr. Sushruta, Assistant Professor at Amrita University, Coimbatore, will be joining to deliver Bhagavad Gita. He has done his PhD in Yoga and Yajna, studied Vedanta from traditional Gurukulam system, starting from very young age of 10 for more than 12 years. Now he will enlighten us on the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita today. Swagatam, Dr. Sushruta ji.
Namaste, sarvebhyah namaamsi. Prayena ayam कार्यक्रमः सर्वथापि संस्कृतभाषायां भवति इत्यस्मात् आदौ किञ्चित् संस्कृते एव उक्त्वा परम् आङ्ग्लभाषायां विवक्ष्यामि. मम अध्ययनं तु बहु बाल्यादेव गुरुकुले अभूत् इत्यस्मात् सर्वेपि पाठाः अपि संस्कृतमाध्यमेन एव आसीत्. अतः अत्र संस्कृतज्ञाः अपि विषयज्ञाः अपि उपविष्टाः इति मम मनः मोमुद्यते. अहं शङ्करम् आगमरूपेण आगम्य तत् स्थाने किञ्चित् विवक्ष्यामि भगवद्गीतायाः श्लोकद्वयं यावत्. So in order to ease all the people and audience, I try to explain two shlokas which are very, very important. In fact, when you consider studying Bhagavad Gita, each and every shloka is very important, but audiences are different. So if one shloka is very much suitable for me, for someone else, other shloka will be much more suitable, because that is the area that a person would looking for a particular set of issues in one's personal and subjective life that will be extracting and the lessons from Bhagavad Gita. So in this context, two shlokas I am how it is relevant, and what we can learn from Bhagavad Gita. So lessons from Bhagavad Gita. This is two shlokas from second chapter. The first one, niryogakshema atmavan. This is the first shloka. Then the second, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhuhu ma te astu sangah akarmani. Very critical in this sense. Why Krishna is saying don't follow the Vedas? You know, for example, त्रैगुण्य विषयाः ग्रन्थे गुणत्रयं यस्मिन् ग्रन्थे उक्तं तत् गुणत्रयं यस्मिन् ग्रन्थे एते विषयाः त्रैगुण्य विषयाः वेदाः निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन. It looks like Krishna is demotivating Arjuna, don't follow Vedas. Okay, Traigunya Vishayaha Vedaha Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. Hey Arjuna, you do not follow Traigunya, meaning the text which has been emphasizing on the activation mode of your whole personality. Traigunya Vishayaha Vedaha Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. You be a person who is transcended the level of trigunas, because all the confusion, all the despondency, all the depression that you are facing is because you are the victim of trigunas right now. Okay, what is the context of Bhagavad Gita when you consider? He is basically confused. So he is openly saying and admitting, I do not want to fight all my own kith and kins, my own gurus, my own relatives. So it is a moment of Arjuna's life where he confronts the great confusion, that is the dilemma. So now Krishna is saying to Arjuna, the moment you come out of this triguna clutch, the victimization of yourself under the clutches of triguna is making you to get depressed and despondent towards whatever you are claiming. I just want to run away. I'm even ready to have begging bowl in my hand, and I'm ready even to die. So all these confusions are happening in the mind of Arjuna because he is victimized right now for the triguna. So triguna is actually very complex system of our own personality. In fact, no one is purely sattvic or rajasic or tamasic. Okay, we cannot claim in the whole world, the way Ayurveda says, vata pitta kapha. So vata pitta kapha, we do not find people generally purely which are vata or pitta or kapha. It is combination generally happens. Okay, it is either vata pitta or vata kapha, kapha vata. So that kind of combination, two qualities will be dominant in their personality. Similarly, all of us invariably and unavoidably have these three. Consider one quality will be dominant, and this is the internal conflict we have as an inheritance. We have this as we carry the genetics. Similarly, from personality perspective, these three gunas are inherent, and the internal conflict is a critical condition of not be able to understand what is the context. He is victimized right now of trigunas. So Krishna's advice in the beginning of second chapter, in the sense, these are not beginning shlokas of second chapter, but as part of Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, he says, "Are you are victimized of trigunas, so just be out of it for a while. You need to see through situation to come over what is the dilemma and despondency." So nirdvandvo nitya sattvasthaha. Dvandva happens because trigunas are bringing conflict in your thinking process. So whenever you are out of ambiguity, you can think and you can see through situation and work accordingly and perform your activities. So nirdvandvaha nitya sattvastha. So what is he saying when he says nitya sattvastha? Sattva is a symbol of clear vision. Okay, when you have sattva more, when sattva takes over rajas and tamas, there is a proper guidance, not only for you but for others as well. Looking at you, others also will follow what is the correct and what is developmental model way of leading life. Therefore, nitya sattvastha. If you are sattvic in nature, intellectually, you can maintain the balance. Imbalance is an indicator of having more rajas and more tamas. So here, imbalance that Arjuna is facing is because of this conflict, and this conflict is because of rajas and tamas. So Krishna says, nirdvandvaha nitya sattvastha, be at sattva so that you can see through this situation, you have a clarity over what you are supposed to do. And niryoga kshema atmavan, when you do not have any conflict as such, you will pass through the difficult situation very quickly and be able to understand the situation in a better manner. After this, there is one more shloka that we are skipping. It says karmani eva adhikaraha te ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhuhu ma te astu sangaha akarmani. This is also one of the most quoted shloka, and it is quote even in many Bollywood, Tollywood, all the good movies also this shloka appears without knowing the original meaning. Okay, so it says karmani eva adhikaraha te ma phaleshu kadachana. The moment you start engage yourself in some kind of activity, our mind gets vitiated because one starts thinking about the phala itself. Okay, what will I get if I do this? What whether I'm going to face the failure of what I'm going to do right now. So the moment mind is engaged with the phala, you cannot perform the action properly. In order to perform your action efficiently and sufficiently thoroughly, you need to stop thinking about the phala of whatever the action that you are performing, be it teaching, be it chanting, be it speaking in Samskrita, everything. Only when we perform, not think about the phala. And karmani eva adhikara. Adhikara is not control over something. Adhikara is eligibility. You are in your hand. So phala, however comes, it is phala is always according to the action. So you perform the action, according to the action, the phala will come naturally without ask. Okay, when you start thinking about phala, the phala may vitiate because you have not done the karma properly. So ma karma phala heturbhuhu mate sangaha astu akarmani. The moment I will not think about any phala, then naturally this comes. Why should I do any karma, right? If I'm not anticipating any phala of any action, why should I do? Is why. Okay? Because according to Bhagavad Gita, every action that has come to you is only as a duty. Okay, so as the duty, then the kartritva, bhoktaritva, and many things will be transcended from that point of view. So with this, probably the message and the things that in the compressed form that Bhagavad Gita gives, we need to find out the examples, narrations, and context in a. So with this, I pray and fantastic initiative that is helping many of the seekers. So with this, I salute and take leave. Dhanyawad.
Dhanyawad ji. It's such a great epic in the scripture for us to learn. Thank you once again, ji. So now we will hear one of the spiritual composition of Srimad Adi Shankara in Arabhiraga set in Aditalam, which is the Shiva Panchaksharam Stotram by Leisha, who is 11-year-old, and Teisha, a 5-year-old, who lives in Hyderabad, and students of Hemalata ma'am, and is having their education in Abhaya Waldorf. Now I'm handing it to Leisha and Teisha for Shloka chanting.
Namaskaram, my name is Leisha. I am studying in grade 5 Abhaya School. Namaskaram, my name is Teisha. UKG. I am in UKG. We will be singing Shri Shiva Panchaksharam Stotram. Nagendra Haraya Trilochanaya Asmangaragaya Maheshwaraya Nityaya Shuddhaya Digambaraya Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Mandakini Salila Chandana Charchitaya Nandishwara Pramadanatha Maheshwaraya Mandara Pushpa Bahupushpa Sapujitaya Tasmai Makaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Shivaya Gauri Vadanabja Vrinda Suryaya Dakshadvara Nashakaya Shri Nilakantaya Vrishatvajaya Tasmai Shikaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Vashishta Kumput Bhavagautamarya Munindra Devachita Shekaraya Chandrarka Vaishvanara Lochanaya Tasmai Makaraya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Yajnasvarupaya Jatadaraya Pinakahastaya Sanatanaya Divyaya Devaya Digambaraya Tasmaya Karaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya Namah Shivaya 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 Namo Shivaya 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 Namo Shivaya Namo Shivaya Namo Shivaya Bhavaya Shivaya Namo Shivaya Namo Shivaya Namo Shivaya Bhavaya Shivaya Namo. Dhanyavadam. Dhanyavadam.
Thank you so much, Leisha and Teisha. You made the stotra more beautiful with both of your voice. Thank you once again. So now we are at the topic of the day, the Indian architecture and astronomy. Since ancient times, India has a glorious culture of education, science and technology, has made a significant contribution in the field of astronomy. Ganita, the Ayurvedic system of medicine. So to know more about this, we have the main speaker, Shri Sainath Jagadish Shanbhag ji, who is a expertise in Indian knowledge system, astronomy, architecture, astrology, Ganita and Puranas. He has completed BE MTech in electronics and has contributed 22 years of software chip designs. Headed AI team for a startup, technical leadership role in industry, designed and demonstrated Sankhya Darshana based Nadi chip for analysis, Vada, Pitta, Kapha from pulse reading as a part of MTech thesis, PhD proposal, founder CTO, developed Sanskrit-based programming environment based on Indic knowledge system. Great achievement, sir. Now, with honor, I welcome Shri Sainath Jagadish Shanbhag ji to talk about the Ganita in Indian architecture and astronomy.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. And I would be talking on Ganita in Indian architecture and astronomy. I have a couple of slides. In case the slides could be shared, I could see the slides and I could continue. Yeah. All right. So this is Ganita in Indian architecture and astronomy. If you go to the next slide. Yes. So first of all, did we have an Indian architecture is the first point. Now, if you have to think so, you can keep next slide. Next slide. Okay. So these are a couple of the ancient architectures across the world. So we have Egyptian pyramids, the size of which is 146 to 30 meters. And you can see that it is a plain structure, whereas a Madurai Meenakshi temple is more size is bigger than that, 220 to 258 meters. And we can see the intricate architectures of all of that internal areas, external, etc. It is much more intricate than Egypt. Then we have a Roman structure, which is dilapidated. And we have a Chinese, which is an Eastern architecture. If you look at the next slide, we have one structure in Italy and one structure in France. And around the same time, we have Virupaksha temple in Karnataka. You can see that the architecture intricacies of Indian architecture is way beyond that in the other areas. So these slides that I'm taking from the top two pictures are from popularmechanics.com technology, ancient architecture. And the Indian architecture is I have pasted above that. So the link was on top 20 architectures. However, so I have taken that as a reference and I have shared how does Indian architecture stand with respect to ancient great architectures as claimed in this architecture, in this article. If you go to next slide. Again, there is a architecture in England and an architecture in Scotland. And the architecture below is of the same similar timeline, and that is Angkor Wat. So Angkor Wat is an architecture, and you can again compare Indian architecture with other architectures. And this is where the Indian architecture stands. Now, if you can keep going through next couple of slides. Next. Yeah, so this is the picture of Angkor Wat. You can see the kind of fractal structures on the top gopuras, how intricate they are, and how difficult it is to construct this and to ensure that in spite of all the earthquakes, etc., the structure still stands. So that is a big achievement. Next slide. So this is the Paramban temple in Indonesia. So that time, 9th century AD, that was a time when India extended till Indonesia. So all of these areas were basically Indian, and the South Indian kingdom was prevalent in. these areas. So that is why we see a Dravidian or South Indian style of temples in these areas. If you go to next slide. So this is Mahabalipuram. Again, we can see the kind of work that it has. So aesthetic and still standing the test of time. Next slide. So this is a top view of one temple, and we can see that how the top view also represents, top view itself is also very aesthetic. Next slide. So this is how the architecture of majority of the temples stands. So there is a Gopuram. So we have basically 7 chakras, and these chakras are how the temples are constructed. For example, the Gopuram represents the feet of the god, and the Dvajastambham is the Mooladhara chakra, and Balipitham is Swadhisthana chakra, etc. And the main temple, the Vimana, is at the Sahasrara and Ajna chakra. That is where we have the main deity kept. So there are various areas of various. So Indian astronomy is very much connected with the chakra system available in our Ayurveda. So if you go to next slide. So how does within the temple architecture, basically we have a square or a rectangle area. And within that rectangle area, we divide it basically into 9 parts. And the center part is the Brahma Sthana. And generally that is where we keep the main deity. And there are each of these other 8 areas, each represent one part. And we can go through that each parts maybe in question answer session. But the main point is each of this part of the temple is well designed like this. So this is a plan of Vishweshwara temple, Varanasi Kashi Varanasi temple. If we go to next slide. So again, Kandariya Mahadeva temple. So within this, we can see that there are 2 main structures in the center, and each is again basically a square. And within the square, there is a Brahmasthana, which is in the center, and there is a Garbhagraha, which is in the central portion. And Mahamandapa also, it has a center portion which is kept free of, it will not have any specific stambhas or pillars. So Brahmasthana is very important area. So thus we have an Indian architectural system of planning that is used in every part of the architecture. So if we go to next slide. So when a planning is done, basically a rectangle or a square is taken, and within that square we divide it into various mandalas, like various parts. So either we can have 3 into 3, or we can have 9 into 9. So if you go to, so basic parts, depending upon the kind of temples we have to construct or different kind of house we have to construct, a complete area of a rectangle or a square is divided into various parts. And in each of the square, we decide whether a wall has to come, or a stambha has to come, pillar has to come, boundary has to come, etc. So this is basically the concept how we take forward the various architectures, be it town planning, temple planning, or the house planning. And if you go to next slide. So if we look at that, again, that the main mandalas are divided such that each part of the temple is again divided like that. And that is how we continue the construction. So next slide. So this is from the top level of a temple in Gujarat. Again, we can see the Brahmasthana that is taken here. And in the Brahmasthana, we have the main temple deity. Next. So now we have seen whether did we have Indian architecture, and we have shown that yes, we have the Indian architecture which has stood the test of the time, and there was a proper planning that went into this. Now let us see whether did we have an Indian astronomy or did we inherit it from some other country. So if you go to next slide. So this is a shloka from Valmiki. So this was a shloka that was written when Sri Rama, during the time of Sri Rama by Valmiki. So Valmiki was a rishi who lived during the time of Rama, and during his time this shloka was written, which says Tato yagye samapte tu rutunam shat samatyayuhu tatascha dwadashe mase chaitre navimakai tithau. So this means that Rama was born on Chaitra on 9th Tithi. So that means that the current calendar that we have, which is Chaitra, Vaishakha, etc., the name of the month existed during the time of Rama. And he was born on 9th Tithi. So 9th Tithi means when the moon was growing from new moon to full moon. On the 9th day, on the 9th Tithi, 9th phase of the moon, Rama was born. If you go to the next slide, and it says Nakshatre Diti Daivatye Suvacha Samsteshu Panchasu Graheshu Karkate Lagne Vakpata Vadana Saha. So it says that the nakshatra was the one whose deity was Aditi. So through this we can know that it was Punarvasu nakshatra, and the Punarvasu nakshatra was the nakshatra whose deity is Aditi. So through that we are able to say that, okay, the moon was not in Krishna Paksha, but it was in Shukla Paksha. So the phase of the moon. So we know that when it is in a Chaitra Masa, and in Chaitra Masa, when the moon is near Aditi, that is only a condition which forms when it is in Shukla Paksha, when the moon is increasing in its size. If you go to next slide, it says Nakshatre Diti Daivatye, yeah, same slide, same meaning. And it also, Swacha Samsteshu Panchashu means the 5 planets are in Uchasthana. So what is these 5 planets? So when it says, so the point is, when a child or when an event is mentioned, along with that mentioning of the event, we are representing the location of all the planets and the moon with respect to the stars in the stars in our galaxy. So that shows that Indian astronomy was there during the time of Rama, which was several thousands of years back, at least more than 12,000 years back. If you go to next slide. So what does this mean? So Chaitre, when it says Chaitre, it means that from the sun, if you draw a line to earth, and that line will go to a star in the galaxy, which is Chitra Nakshatra. So that is the meaning of Chaitre. So with using this shloka, we are able to identify the configuration of the solar system during that time. So which represents Indian astronomy. If you go to next slide, it says Chaitre Navamike Titho, which means that through this we can identify the location of the moon. The moon will be in such a way that if we draw a line from earth to moon, it will go to the it will go to a nakshatra which is whose deity is Aditi, and specifically it is a Punarvasu nakshatra. If you go to next slide. So moon is near Punarvasu. Next slide. And then when we say Swacha Samsteshu Panchashu, it means that sun is in Ucha Sasthana. So this is that if we draw a line from earth to sun, it will go to an area, a group of constellation, which is called Aries in English, or it is called Mesha. If you go to next slide. And then Venus is in Uchasthana, meaning Venus is in Meena. So that way we have identified sun, earth, moon, and then now we are identifying the Venus location. So Venus we have identified. Next slide. So we have identified the Mars. Mars is in Makara. When we say Mars is in Makara, that means that from the earth, when we observe the Mars planet, which is red color planet, we will see that in the backdrop it will have Makara. And then from the earth, when we see the Jupiter, so Jupiter is in the also next slide. Jupiter is in Uchasthana, which is Karka, and that way we identified the location of Jupiter. And next slide. And then Saturn is in Uchasthana, Tula. So this way we have captured the configuration of the various planets during the time of Rama. So this is how each event was mentioned. What about the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto? So they are mentioned in Mahabharata. So let us not go to that detail, because most of the planets, most of our calculations can be done with respect to these many planets, and the gravitational field and other fields from those other planets are very feeble compared to these so many planets. So if you go to next slide. So again, we have, again, next slide. So now we can know that what is the time he was born. And when you say Graheshu Karkate Lagne, that means that the rotation of Earth was such a way that in the east, the Karka constellation was it was rising. So that means that it was around noon time, because if we draw a 90-degree line from Earth to Sun, it shows that, okay, it was the mid-afternoon time when Rama was born. So today also, when Ram Navami is celebrated, the main puja is done at the noon time. So that is how, using simple lines, the planetary configuration or the Indian astronomy was explained or mentioned. If we go to next slide. So now we have shown that both Indian architecture and Indian astronomy did exist several thousands of years back. Now the question is, why should this architecture matter? If you go to next slide. So we require architecture to build forts which are very strong, which stands the test of the time to protect the people. And we need to build a temple which can solve people's health, mental issues, spiritual issues. So we saw that how various chakras, based on chakras, the temples are built. So there are specific temples which solve the specific problems of health. And we need to build towns that are self-sufficient. We need to build houses that stand hundreds of years. So these are the reasons why the architecture becomes important for any civilization. So in this, the picture is that of a temple which solves a specific problem related to pregnancy. So several such temples are there. So basically it means that the main chakra, which is related to pregnancy, that chakra will be very well carefully designed, which will be made more powerful. And when people go and sit here, the cosmic energies which related to that chakra gets energized, and that way their specific health problems are solved. If you go to next slide. So these are the basic forts which has again stood the test of the time. And if we can see how strong they are, and during a war, what would happen is the people in the outskirts, they would come and stay within the fort. And then for several years, the fort can keep ensuring that they are well protected from the enemy. Now, if you go to next slide. So this is an example of a house that has stood hundreds of years and still it is standing. If you go to next slide. So now, why should astronomy matter? The reason astronomy matters is, if you go to next slide. So for any economic activity, a production is required, and after the production, it is required that the production is supplied to various areas. And then for a sea route travel is comparatively much less energy consuming compared to a land route travel. That is why even today, most of the economic activities happens through sea route, as in long time. Now the problem is, when we go in a sea route, the only way we can identify our current location is through the getting the longitude and latitude of the current location. And that was done through the looking at the shadow of a particular pillar that we kept on the boat, and then looking at the shadow in the daytime, and at night time identifying the nakshatras, where the moon is, where the northern stars are, where the southern stars are, etc. So astronomy requires all the identification of the location of all these stars, etc. So if you go to next slide. So what are the issues being faced today for propagating this knowledge of Indian architecture and Indian astronomy? We will take a look at one use case. If you go to next slide. So now this is a very famous, famous website called textbook.com, where children learn for getting into IAS or these kind of roles. government roles or bank roles, etc. So there is a question that it says who completed the Qutub Minar, and it says Kutubuddin Aibak. Then there are other three. This one Iltutmish, Nasruddin, Kuba Khan, right? So now the answer is when someone reads this, it appears that this is a Mughal structure, and the answer is Iltutmish is the person who completed it. Now let us see the actual story. If you go to next slide. Now here it says Qutub Minar is tilting due to seepage, which is kind of representing that Qutub Minar foundation is not so strong. So that is why it is tilting. And this is mentioned by experts. And then looking at that experts, the Archaeological Survey of India also starts doing some cementing area in the structure, etc. To as well confirm that yes, of course, the Qutub Minar is tilting, and of course that the architecture is foundation is having problem. Now, if you go to next slide. Now, what is the actual Qutub Minar details? Let us try to see that. Next slide. So this is the structure of Qutub Minar, and when we look at this, we are taught in our school days that this was built this was built in the Mughal time during Kutubuddin Aibak, etc. And let us go to the next slide. This is the actual Qutub Minar. So this is as per Indian astronomy. This is if we see that the Earth is tilted. It's not only Indian astronomy. This is the real thing, that the Earth's orbit is tilted 23.4 degrees, and then we have a lunar orbit. So the lunar orbit is also tilted by 5.14 degrees. Now, if we add both the tilt of Earth and tilt of Moon, we are going to get 28.54 degree north. Now, if you go to next slide, this is a time where in the Bangalore and Chennai, if we try to identify, if we place a pole, we will see that there is no shadow. So there were some experiments that were done by some kids, and I was also doing. So I had asked some kids in Bangalore to conduct this experiment, where they will place a pole and they will see that at mid-afternoon, there is no shadow. Generally, the shadow at mid-afternoon will fall towards the south direction or north direction. But during this time, the shadow doesn't fall either on south or north. And in a couple of days in Chennai, the same phenomenon will be seen. So if you look at the next slide, and this phenomenon happens at the Tropic of Cancer. Now, however, what we see is that same, just like the solar shadow is there, we can as well get the lunar shadow, the moon's shadow also we can get. Now, as per the previous slide, we have seen that when we add the latitude of both the moon as well as sun, we get some 28 something. And that latitude is exactly the latitude where we are getting Qutub Minar. So basically, just like we are doing experiments of sun shadow, for doing anything related to moon, we require a latitude. So just like Tropic of Cancer goes through Indore through the middle of India, similarly, when the sun for the moon, this particular line is through, it goes through New Delhi. So that was the reason why the Qutub Minar was built there. And Qutub Minar can be built only by some person who understands both this, that the earth is round and there is a tilt. So someone who understands this astronomy can only build this Qutub Minar. If you go to next slide. So this is a particular website where we can identify the latitude of the moon. And here we can see that on 21st April, let me exactly confirm that. On 21st April, 25th April. On 25th April, the moon is exactly above the New Delhi, where the Qutub Minar is Qutub Minar is constructed. And that is a point where the moon at that time is exactly above the earth, above the Delhi. If you go to next slide. Similarly, on 9th May, the moon will be somewhere near Vadodara and that belt, where the moon will be exactly above our head. If you go to subsequent slide, again we will see that on 25th April, again the moon has come directly above the Qutub Minar, that area, that latitude, right? So that shows that the construction of the Qutub Minar was done such that it was the moon observatory could be done. If you go to next slide, there is a previous slide. Okay, so I think this picture is not being shown here. So basically in the so there is a picture, supposed to be a picture here, and yeah, it is white, it's showing white in color. So basically that picture has not come probably. So basically there are circular steps inside the Qutub Minar. Next slide actually. So next slide. Okay, so there is basically a circular staircase inside, and currently the Qutub Minar is closed, and only when some Western universities want to come and learn that, they open that. So generally it is closed. So these are the structures where these points are shown. These are the various windows that are present, and each of the windows, if we see, it is distributed at a angle of 13.33 degree. So suppose that there are two staircases, two windows here. So between each of these windows, there are a staircase of 13 steps. So these 13 steps between these two windows represents 13 degrees between them. If you go to next slide. So now the question is okay, if you go to previous slide again. So why there is this 13 degree? Basically, we see that as we observed there in the moon, it takes 27 days for the moon to exactly come above Qutub Minar. So these 27 days is represented by these 27 windows, and these 27 windows are divided. These 27 windows has to come circular way. It has to be done in such a way that there are 13 degree. There is 13 degree between each of this. So again, that we see that the moon, when it goes through each phase, Tithi, the moon is near one nakshatra. So thus we have 27 nakshatras, which are spread across 360 degree. And these 27 nakshatras spread across 360 degree represents that each shows that between each two nakshatras, there is 13 degree. So if we see that each of these windows are represented, are kept exactly at 13.33 degree. So probably they had some instruments that they would put there, and through that they used to do some observation. If you go to next slide. So here, this is the way where the summer sun and the winter sun is there in the Delhi area. So if we see that the summer sun is approximately around 5 degree, and the winter sun is at a much oblique position. And let us see how this knowledge of summer sun is used in the Qutub Minar. If you go to next slide. Here, if you remember the first slide where some experts said that the Qutub Minar is slanting, it is tilting nowadays because the foundation is weak because of the leakage of water, etc., etc. And we saw that the Archaeological Survey of India accepted that, and it put some cement structures in the foundation. So basically, if we see here, we see that on the left that the Qutub Minar is constructed in such a way that one side is exactly vertical and the other side is slanting at 5 degree. So one side is exactly 90 degree. Now the size of, if we draw it in a diagram like ABC triangle with ABP, AP is exactly vertical, AB is slanted at 5.0244 degree. Now why this is important is that when the sun is shining on the summer day, which is on 21st June, that is the day when the sun is exactly above Tropic of Cancer. That time, though this is not Tropic of Cancer, because of this 5 degree, the shadow will not be falling anywhere. So either we construct a Qutub Minar kind of thing on Indore area, Tropic of Cancer area, so that on 21st June, shadow doesn't fall. Or if we construct this at a lunar observatory, we will keep it in such a way that one side is vertical and one side is kept at 5 degrees, so that when the sun is shining at 5 degrees, the shadow is not falling on the ground. So this is the point how both sun astronomy, sun's latitude and the moon's latitude is both taken care. The tilt is taken care, and this is how the construction is done. Now, additional problem with constructing this tall structure is that Delhi is an area where there is a continuous earthquakes. So this structure should as well stand the earthquake for so many years. Now, if we see 3 points, one is the construction of time-tested thing, solar, sun's observation, moon's observation. These kind of things were available only in Indian architecture and Indian astronomy. So that way we can say that the Qutub Minar is constructed by someone who understands who understands Indian astronomy as well as Indian architecture. So thus we can say that it is not a structure built by Mughals. If you go to next slide. So where am I giving these details from? So I would suggest you to look at one of the videos from Abhishek Singh. He has written a book on this Qutub Minar. He is a young engineering graduate who tried to get into all this, and he is the person who got all this information about Qutub Minar. I have mentioned here, and you can go to Neeraj Atri's site, YouTube channel, and you will find a video there. And the pictures of the temple, etc., is taken from chartered accountant, again a young chap who is Shantanu Paranjpai. He tries to identify Indian temple, and then he conducts classes on that. So I would as well suggest you to look at his LinkedIn profile and look about the details. So this is Indian architecture and astronomy. If you go to next slide. Now, currently our architecture and astronomy is under Western influence. Now what I mean to say is that, suppose I want to construct a house that stands for 100 or 200 years. So what I would do is I would identify the Indian architecture and look at any house that has stood 100, 200 years. And based on same architecture principle, I would want to construct it. However, the problem today is that if I want to construct such a house, I will have to first get it approved from the government, the local municipality or local panchayat or the local BBMP or such government bodies. And if you go with that basic architecture which stands 100, 200 years, you won't be getting electricity or water. So the only way you can survive is you construct an architecture which is based on Western architecture, which generally if we construct a house, it will be standing around 30 to 40 years maximum. And then you will have to keep changing the structure. Second thing is with respect to astronomy, if we have to predict the rain for agriculture, etc. So in the past, it was done through, how much time do I have further? Sir, how much time do I have?
Sir, please proceed.
Okay, so if you can share the slide again. Yeah, so we were basically on the slide number 52. Yeah. So again, with respect to astronomy, we used to use astronomy for prediction of rain for agriculture. And we were able to predict rain exactly. And the way it was predicted was through the location of the moon and sun with respect to a background star. So currently we are predicting the rain using the Western model where we send a satellite and then we predict. And unfortunately what happens is they say that this year there is a drought, etc. So ideally if we are predicting rain, then there is no point of saying that there was a drought. So we are not using prediction of rain based on Indian astronomy. Second thing is we do not have Hindu calendar in education. So children don't study what is Chitra, Vaishakha, etc. So that has again several advantages with respect to other activities. If you go to next slide. So we have seen that it is difficult that we cannot practice architecture, we cannot practice astronomy. Plus the media doesn't tell the truth about a structure, it spreads lies, along with the education system. So what are we doing about it, and what can we do about it? So if you go to next slide. So what I have done, or what I am a founder of a company, and we enable kids with Indic knowledge background, where we give Indic knowledge background to kids, and then we let them do some activities in computers, and specifically do some kind of coding and introduce them to coding. Now here, what we do is, in the top left, we have taken the idea of Indian architecture, where if you remember the mandala structure, so the top left is basically a direction which represents Ishanya, Agneya, Nairutya, Vayavya, etc. So these are the main important cardinal directions that are used in temple architecture as well as in the house planning. What you see on the top right is a kind of structures of zodiac, where we have 12 zodiac or rashis. And if you remember where I mentioned about Rama's birth, how we identified all the how all the planets position, that was through such a structure that we see on the top right. Now, basically, that is if you have seen any kundali or jatak of a person, you will see that we will have such a structure where we mention where the planets are at the birth time of a child. What we see on the bottommost is the nakshatra chart, where we have 27 nakshatras, as I had mentioned with reference to Qutub Minar, that there are 27 windows in Qutub Minar, each at 13.33 degree. And these are the various nakshatras where the moon would be moving in each tithi. So we have Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, etc. So these are the basic keywords that I use in my language, in my programming language. If you go to next slide. So here, if you remember the various mandala that we studied in the temple architecture, we went through the temple architecture. There are various mandalas which are used during the construction of a temple, town, house, etc. So here, what I have done is, when a kid wants to draw, so drawing is something which every kid tries to learn. And I believe that even in computers, instead of writing hello world program, one needs to draw to identify, that will give them more happiness to continue a coding. So here what we do is, if you see on the top right where Hanuman is flying, I had divided into 4 mandalas. So basically each of these mandalas is basically depending upon the Rashi chart and the Nakshatra chart. We don't have Rashi chart in the temple architecture, but for reasons related to computing, I have added the Rashi chart as well here. And in each of these mandalas, we can say exactly where the child wants to place each of these images. So here you see that Hanuman is flying, and for actually this Hanuman flying, the whole thing is basically a code. It is not, we are not drawing in a paint. Either we can use an application where we can draw. Please let us have your mobile number. We'll send recorded video. Sure. So what we are doing is, here the child first, there is a child from Sannati, an Australian kid, who created this Hanuman by using this language. And then some other child would place a blue sky in Uttarabhadra to Hasta. Then in the second line, it is saying that place the Sannati Hanuman in Vrishabha Rashi. So if you see on the top right, you can see that the Hanuman is in Vrishabha Rashi. And that is what the second line of code is mentioning. And the third line of code is mentioning that place the blue water from Dhanishta to Hasta. So this way, where we are communicating, it is possible to construct some computer-based programming where we are communicating to the computer in the Indic knowledge system. And when we communicate to the computer in Indic knowledge system, it is possible for computer also to create some output very easily. So this is something that once we do this, it is possible that we are able to communicate our Indic knowledge system to our kids. If you go to next slide. So this is basically how the 3 slides. So we have, so this is a high level programming. Below this, there is another program where we have written code for Hanuman. We have written code for river. We have written code for sky. So specifically the Hanuman code was written by Sannati from Australia. So this is how we are having the code which uses Sanskrit. So Sthapayatu is the first word which represents place this particular blue sky or each of this element in a particular location. Chitre refers to Chitra, and this is we use a vibhakti here. And in the first line, we have Sthapayatu Chitre blue sky, Uttara Bhadrapadataha Hasta Paryantam. So we have taken 2 points, coordinates. Uttara Bhadrapada is a nakshatra, and when we say Uttara Bhadrapadataha, it represents from. And Hasta Paryantam represents where is the end location. So Hasta is a nakshatra again in the night sky. So this way we introduce night sky, Indian astronomy to the child, and then we introduce Sanskrit to the child, and then show that it is possible to create a language where computer can also understand. So if you go to next slide. Yeah, so basically this is what we did. So we say whether did we have Indian architecture, and we saw the slides of Indian ancient structures with respect to Western ancient structures. Then we saw whether did we have Indian astronomy or we got it from someone else. And for that, I showed that in Valmiki Ramayana, during a birth of Rama, we are mentioning where all the planets are using 3 simple shlokas. Then why should architecture matter? And then we said that it is required for solving health issues, financial issues, mental issues, spiritual issues, etc. So there are temples for specific health issues, etc. And why should astronomy matter? Astronomy matters for trade on sea route. Astronomy matters for prediction of rain on right time, etc. Next slide. So then we saw what are the issues being faced today in propagating this knowledge. So the difficulty is that there is lies being propagated by the education system, by the media, etc. So we saw a slide of Qutub Minar where they mentioned that the Qutub Minar structure is not good, it is slanting. Then they mentioned that, okay, it is constructed by Qutubuddin Aibak and some people, Mughals time. And then we saw actual Qutub Minar details that how a single structure can be used, can be built, which represents both the position of the sun, position of the moon. It takes the longitude, latitude of each of these structures, etc. And what can be done when architecture and astronomy are under Western influence? This is something that it is not at an individual level we can't do, but when we have this kind of knowledge propagating, probably we will be able to, construct houses that can stand for 100 to 200 years. Basically, the problem with current thing is that a cement that we use, the lifespan of cement is 20, 30 years, basically. Probably 20 years back, the lifespan of cement was 30 to 40 years. Currently, the lifespan of cement is 20 years. And then a structure that we are building as per today's way, it cannot stand a earthquake. So always there are some small minor earthquakes. So the moment in 20 to 30 years, that small couple of minor earthquakes and the structure will fall. So what are we doing about it? We enable kids with Indic knowledge system, and then we teach them, and then we help them use the same in the field of computing. So that is a small contribution from my side in ensuring that we have that traditional knowledge propagate to the next generation. So that is the slides. Now I would take it to QA session. Hope I have completed the slides in specific less time. Yeah, so that's all from my side.
Dhanyawada Haji. Dhanyawada. Thank you for your explanation, and thank you so much.
So there were some questions. If you could go through the questions during the presentation. So can you go through the questions or show the questions that that were asked during the presentation? Yeah, please. I have a question. Rajesh Ji from Mumbai.
Yeah. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. First of all, sir, this is Rajesh Parmar from Thakur School of Architecture and Planning, Mumbai. Thank you very much for this learned experience. Okay, my query is, sir, that as an architect, like we get interior projects, okay, like we have flats in Mumbai. So anything with respect to astronomy, can we follow certain things in a house, like we design whatever we design the interiors for? Any
Yes.
considerations?
So, right. Yeah. So there are fundamentally at a fundamental level, it is not possible to take the complete architecture. But within the limit of architects, what is possible is that you shouldn't be constructing. So there are specific areas where you shouldn't be constructing a wall, or definitely you shouldn't be constructing a pillar. You shouldn't be constructing toilet, etc. So once you have a location where you have to plan, you basically draw a mandala that I have shared. And within that mandala, there are places where you should definitely avoid kitchen. You should definitely avoid. So there are some definite big no-nos. So there are a couple of guidelines where each of the rooms should be placed. Now, when I communicate with architect, they find that that will curtail their freedom to do changes. But still, if you want to do a lot of experiments, there are some things which you can avoid. And those are avoiding removing the pillars, etc. Not sure whether architectures have a role in ensuring where the main pillars come. But if you can communicate with civil engineers as well, you can avoid pillars at some critical points you should avoid. That is one thing. And at even the construction of toilet, etc., is both the question of architecture and civil engineer. So both you should work in tandem to avoid toilets coming at specific places. So yes, so these are, if you can refer to any Vastu book, there are some things that you can definitely handle.
So, but these Vastu books, na, sir, they have little complexity. Now, like you explained so nicely and neatly, such such simple things, if we could get in some references or books, that would be helpful, sir. Because the way you explained was very simple, and the books which explained, no, they are a little bit difficult to understand, probably.
All right. Yeah, there are several books. Some books, basically, if you refer to the original book, I would suggest you, just like you spend 4 years for 5 years for learning architecture, I would suggest you spend around 6 months or 1 year for studying this Vastu book, if possible in Sanskrit with a Hindi or English translation. So it should have a Sanskrit shloka along with Hindi and English translation. The reason that is because that way you will be exactly getting the main concepts as the original book is mentioning. Because I have seen several people who do not completely understand the thing and then try to explain. So when you read the original book, you will get even the reason why they construct it like that. And there are several other things also which is beyond that I have mentioned here, which are very important for architecture to handle. Because when you are designing any house, if you do any mistakes, first the problem is whoever is the owner and whoever is going to stay there, they are going to have trouble. And even as an architect, since you designed it, you will also end up getting into some trouble, some spiritual issues, etc. So I would suggest you spend 1 year into learning the Sanskrit along with the shlokas, and that way you can do. And then I also conduct some coding class where I try to propagate what exactly I have, how you can use Sanskrit as well as this knowledge system to draw something in computer. So basically this is, I have tried to keep kids in focus here, but you can go through this such a session and then try to identify. So basic, these concepts are used in this program that I conduct. It's a 2-week program that I conduct, 10 hours. So in this 10 hours, once you do these kind of activities, which is specifically coding, there the basic understanding is also covered. So the idea is that as kids grow up, during their childhood itself, I try to implement these ideas in their mind. So that is my small contribution. For you, simple answer, please read the original books in Sanskrit. And if possible, you can attend one of my sessions, which I conduct for this.
Sir, I would like to have your details for this. saying,
Yes.
so I would like to have summer classes for my architect students as well, because I am an associate professor there at the School of Architecture. So maybe I
Definitely.
can promote this thing. One last
Definitely.
query, I will not take much time.
Yeah.
For interior projects, like I'm designing interior for a house, only interiors.
Hmm.
Okay. Then how do we look at the Vastu and interiors together, not
Yes.
the house itself?
Right. So when you are designing interiors, couple of things people as an end customer, he thinks of how my wardrobe should look, what should be the color of wardrobe. But the interior thing is much more complex than that. You might be already knowing. It is about where you will keep the switches, where will you keep the table, where will the customer sit, where will if it is an office space, where is the customer going to sit? If it is a bedroom, where is the customer going to sleep? And when he is sleeping, where is he keeping his legs, where is he keeping his head? So when you are trying to do that interiors, you need to be thinking through the movement of the client as well. So when a person stays, how does he move across the room? When he enters, does he have access to switch? Where should the lights be? Now, where should the person sit and which direction he should be facing? And if he is facing in such a direction, where should be the lights be? For example, I am sitting in Isanya room, and within Ishanya room, I am sitting in the Ishanya corner. And I am facing north because I have, as per my nakshatra, it is good to face north or good to face east. So I selected north. Now, when I am sitting in Ishanya corner in Ishanya, I have where should I have light? I cannot have light directly above my head because there will be glare on my eyes. So I should keep light behind. Now, the architect has to, when he thinks through all of this, with keeping this in knowledge, it is possible for you to design a better interiors. And how that helps is, so when a person sits in such an interior designed room, there will be economic prosperity, and then that will also give you prosperity indirectly, because the Vastu Purusha will be happy, the spirits there will be happy with you, and because of that there will be progress for you as well.
Any books, sir, for the interior references only for interiors? Any literature, anything?
I haven't seen any specific books with respect to interior. The way I have gained this knowledge is I studied in Kerala, and in Kerala the architecture is extremely strong, and there is so basically this is a running knowledge, practical knowledge. So in Kerala, during 20-25 years back, there used to be some pandits who used to write these things in a simple book in Malayalam, and then I used to read it. Now these kind of documents don't come, and I haven't seen this. I will try to write some things about it. I haven't seen any books which is specifically meant for interior designer, because interior designing is something new that has come with electricity, with all of this. Previously, if I have to work, anyone can sit anywhere and work, and this was a knowledge that. So I am not aware of book. There could be some books.
Then we can start on this, sir. Your expertise will really help in publishing a new book on this.
Yeah, definitely, Rajesh.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Sir, I have few questions.
Yes.
Murali Subramanian.
Yes.
Number one, what you teach, is it more about Vastu or much more than Vastu? This is question number one.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give all my questions. So second question is, now you said you are designing certain things based on your star. When you design certain things based on your star only, if someone else occupies that place, for example, in the family, your wife will be there, your son will be there, someone else will be there, will it be okay for those people also? That's second thing, because a building may be there for our house may be there for 40-50 years, and we may not be there. I'm just raising a question like that. Third one is, now why can't we have, I don't know whether it is there, because I don't know about architecture, the curriculum, whether Vastu is part of the architecture curriculum or not. If it is not, why it is not? Because it's an Indian Indian, what do you call, mainly related to the Indian culture. So why not we have Vastu as a part of the architecture curriculum? And what are we doing about that? Yeah, please.
So first question is, am I teaching as part of what I do? I am just including Vastu, or I'm having more than Vastu. So basically what I do is, I try to show that I try to so we have 27 nakshatras. So in this 27 nakshatras, we do not have, most of our astronomy software will say Alpha Arietis, Beta Arietis. Whereas we have a beautiful, so this Alpha Arietis, Beta Arietis is a name which is given in past 50 years, 50 or 100 years. Whereas we have nakshatra names like Ashwini, Bharani, which is there from the oldest Vedas. It is there in Ramayana, it is there in Mahabharata. But we do not have in education system where we show to the children, okay, this nakshatra is this. If you see in night sky, this is Ashwini, this is Bharani. So what I do is I introduce children to each of these nakshatra. I tell them what is their nakshatra, what is the meaning of their nakshatra, how to identify their nakshatra. So once there is a close connection with, okay, when a child says, okay, this is my nakshatra and I am looking at my nakshatra, and then that is an additional interest for finding them. And through that, I try to give them a basic concept of degrees, angular distance, etc. I make them do experiments. For example, recently in Bangalore, if you keep a pole, there won't be shadow at exact noon time. So I ask them to do this experiment. So this way, and then show them astronomy. So basically, I tell them astronomy, I tell them Vastu, bring them up to what is Indian knowledge system. And with this Indian knowledge system, along with Sanskrit, I show them that it is possible to play with computers. And it will be much helpful. So we do not have, so that is your first answer. Second question is, you said that I may sit here with respect to my star. So basically, if we are identifying some basic principles that can work for each individual. So one is that. And secondly, what happens is when we marry, so when a father and mother is having a child, if the child is born in right nakshatra, or if they do some correct this one, so there are some 16 samskaras that needs to be done, then everything will fall in line. And even suppose that when we are marrying, if we are looking at a jatak when we are marrying, that also ensures that it falls in line. So therefore, when we construct a house, automatically, if we take care of other things, the same house will be good for husband, wife, children, everyone. But in case if that is not done, then we will have to see the nakshatra of a man, nakshatra of a woman, and then the calculation becomes much more difficult. So once I had tried to develop such software, and then I found that it is extremely difficult. But then there are other bigger problems, not just creating a house. There are other problems we end up solving, and this is not a bigger problem then. Then third part is why we don't teach Vastu part of architecture. Now, if we look at our Indian knowledge system, and actually forget Indian knowledge system, everything is connected actually. So my health is connected to my chakras, and my chakras is connected to what activity I do. It is connected to Earth's energy. So, and that is energy is connected to Ayurveda. So therefore, actually, in real sense, everything is a closely connected thing. And our knowledge system is also very tightly knit. Now, there is a discussion about I am not teaching astronomy. I don't believe in astrology. I believe in astronomy. So such things are there. The reason it is happening is because of our Western upbringing of knowledge system, we have compartmentalized each thing. If I am looking at architecture, I will also only look at architecture. If I am looking at civil engineering, I will only look at civil engineering. If I am looking at medicine, I am only looking at medicine, and I won't look into any other parts. So because of that, what is happening is Vastu has become a different subject. Architecture has become a different subject. Civil engineering has become a difficult subject. So even there is a, so civil engineers sometimes don't gel with architecture. So, but ideally, if we study fundamentally through both astronomy, astrology, Vastu together. It is not a big thing or anything. In 6 months, it can be studied. All of this can be studied in a very less time. But if that is studied, we have an integrated structure. Now, the problem with this is the moment you have an integrated structure, you will end up having in India where all the structures look like ancient India. And then there are several other difficulties at a world level, geopolitical level, it will create problems. That is why the education system is controlled by the West. Indian education system is controlled by West. Because if this comes, then there will be geopolitical issues in the next generation. I hope I have answered.
Also, yeah, thank you. Also, I think commercial part possibly overcomes the Vastu thinking. I mean, while building, either flat systems or big bungalows. Actually, what I'm fairly well aware of Vastu system. We have to bring this Vastu system in a big way by telling the success stories. Generally, people, for example, now I have seen, especially few North Indian business people, they have complete faith in this Vastu system, and then they have built their houses, their factories, etc., based on that. Whereas, in some other part of India, etc., they don't really bother. When they have problems, then they go to a Vastu consultant and then try to spend a lot of money in corrections. So, in the beginning itself, if the architect and civil engineer and the Vastu consultant, if they all get together, possibly a good system can emerge. I don't know. This is only a suggestion.
Right. Yeah, that is very good. We have to share success stories of good businessmen. We have to share the failure stories as well. Right. So when both the stories are mentioned, then there will be pressure from the customer point. What is currently happening is I have seen the architecture syllabus, 5-year architecture syllabus. They will have Mughal architecture. They will have Western architecture. Unnecessary, so many architectures they will have, but they will have Indian architectures 1 page or 1 paragraph, and they won't be teaching any of this. So what happens is that by the time a person ends up, he tries to do, an architecture tries to do what he has been taught. So that is the difficulty from the education.
Can I add something here in this, sir? Hello. Can I add something, sir? Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the architecture, actually, basically, I'm teaching history of architecture since the past at least 7-8 years. But I'm really enlightened to have this session today. Okay. So what at our school, what we do is that we really take up Indian architecture in terms of Buddhism and Hindu, So Islamic takes a different page altogether. It's separated most of the times. But we see that our kids do learn about temples, parts of a temple, because Vastu is not still a part of the syllabus. So even I would love to have it. Okay, as sir said rightly, but then we are slowly turning towards it as our school of thought. So I think that we are going out of the box, going just little beyond the syllabus probably. That's what every school of architecture should do. Okay.
Exactly.
With learned people like you, will always inspire us to do more towards Indian architecture. Yeah, so we are doing it already, sir. I'll also share temple photographs which we make the students do, actual scale models of Kailasnath temple. Then we have Lingaraj, Durgigudi and all that stuff. So we're only on the move of IKS, ahead of IKS. IKS is just like, a running wave now since the past 6-4 months. But we have been doing it since for so many years. But, that is not, again, highlighted somewhere because you don't have the right media to, highlight it. We're only doing it as our school of thought. Thank you so much, sir.
Excellent. So you are doing a great work, Rajesh ji. And here, what I would, as well I have seen is that, I'm not talking specifically about this, but in textbook, what we would do is Indian temple architecture, in which they will show some photos as if these are the, these are not the living tradition.
Very true, sir.
Be having
very wrongly highlighted, sir. Yes, sir.
basically we should have how to build Indian temple, how to build such a temples, and how do we build such structures such that they stand this one. So there are some traditional families in Tamil Nadu and various places where they have been doing this for years. Now currently they are stopped from doing it, so they are trying to do some small sculptures and going ahead. But if these people who are having a natural in that they have this knowledge in their genes, if they are given an opportunity to construct such small models where the concepts, basic knowledge, this knowledge are basically hands-on knowledge rather than appreciating the aesthetics. It is about constructing the aesthetics, living in that aesthetic. So I understand, Rajesh ji, that with all the limitations, with the flow against you, you have been doing it for past several years. So
Yes,
that
and in that, even that students learn so much scale models. So scale models, they identify the scale of the model, what
Yeah.
material they can build from. So in the process, they learn so much of research also, and even I have learned with them.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent work, Rajesh.
Mr. Shanbhag, why don't you visit a few architecture colleges and then propagate this in a big way?
Yes, I would like to welcome, sir.
Thank you.
see, you have many takers for this.
I thank you for that. My main focus is the kids who are in the age group of 6 to 14, where it is, where if we are trying to change, if we are trying to give right knowledge to them, I believe that in the next 10 or 20 years, any activity, it takes around some 20 to 30 years of dedicated effort. And I have taken my effort for the first steps of my 5 years for that age group. My next 5 years would be as they grow up, to create something for their knowledge system. And hopefully by next 20, 30 years, at least we have a small group of kids who can, who there is some, I see some future, some bright future, at least that can be given. So of course, yes, if within that time, if I can influence some architects, that would be great.
Yes,
And
sir.
thank you.
Yeah. Actually, what you should do is
interior, sir. Interior Vastu Shastra.
Yeah. Instead of my suggestion, Mr. Rajesh also will agree. Instead of targeting the students of architecture, you can even target the professors of architecture, like
Very true,
Mr.
sir.
Rajesh.
That is more important, sir. That is very important because students,
Yeah.
what happens, they have to listen to the faculty. But if
Correct.
faculty only has that direction, then definitely students will definitely listen, sir.
Yes.
Yeah,
Rajesh ji, why don't you organize one session with Mr. Shanbhag also?
Yes, sir. I would be enlightened to if sir gives me an opportunity. I'd like to share my experiences of all these years of teaching humanity. It has changed a lot. Earlier we had chalk and talk. I used to draw boards, sketches of temples and all. Now we have ICT techniques, projector and all. But still students refer, sir, हमको आप chalk पे दिखाइए, sir. हमको भी बनाना है तो कैसे पता चलेगा? So do that, technique. So definitely I would be enlightened to do that, sir. Along with sir, of course. I'm not that expert, but still with sir I'll be organizing that.
So we should definitely. So I am a founder of a company. The name of the company is Shardula-AI, and SHARDULA-AI, and you can reach me on my WhatsApp number. It's 6362 450 343. Let me repeat: 6362 450 343. And I have a website, shardula-ai.com.
Sir, you may share it on the chat box also.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is my number, and this is my website. Yeah, so these are this is Yeah, I have shared my number and website in the company.
Sainaji, I'm Sundaram here from Delhi. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. It was very insightful and very informative. And I like that research done by Abhishek Singh on Qutub Minar. Yeah,
exactly.
Of course, it is definitely sure it is not built by Mughal, because on the top of, when you see it from the top, it gives a lotus shape of things. And in that place, there are all the structures have the pillars carved. They have destroyed some temples over there and built that other structures around the Qutub Minar. There are so many pillars are there having Hindu gods broken by the Mughals, still existing. And the pillar, the iron pillar which is standing over there has a Sanskrit inscription on it. So could you find out who actually built this Qutub Minar?
All right, yeah. So
because there are stories are going on that of course the astronomy is saying Varah Mihir, who born in Ujjain, came to Delhi in this area during the period of Vikramaditya, and this place was donated to him. This village was donated to him for doing the astronomy research. That is why that place is called, still the Qutub Minar, where the Qutub Minar is situated. The place is called Mehroli. It is named after the Mihir, Varah Mihir, who is the astronomy expert. So can Abhishek put more light on that to research the connectivity between Varah Mihir and this Qutub Minar structure? It should be there somewhere he can find out. If you can throw some light on that, it will be very nice. And the new education policy is coming up, and so many histories are being rewritten. If some very good concrete evidences can be created, then it should be that books can be rewritten.
Right. So I have a slightly different view on this topic. So first of all, when Abhishek Singh ji wanted to try to do all this, when he had approached Archaeological Survey of India, they had discouraged him, saying that you are a computer science student, so don't get into our domain, which is history. So you stick with your domain.
Yes, is a very rubbish thing of India, because I have worked with them for last 20 years on so many exhibitions and so much of things. It's a very rubbish thing of India.
No, they have.
They are working for just monitoring and maintaining, and the fund allocated to them, they are just utilizing and utilizing for maintenance and their own maintenance. That's all. They have absolutely no knowledge about architecture, all the shilpas and everything. Not the ASI people, not the National Museum people.
Yeah, so that is the first point of ASI. Second point is when Abhishek Singh, when he approaches historians, they will again say that, okay, I have a degree in PhD in this, PhD in that. You are just a computer science student. How are you going to tell us what is the real history? So now the way I look at it is, history, like who built it, when he built it, these are the things where any new government, when they come, suppose that, assume that in this government it was changed to the right history. But going forward again, maybe 20 years down the line, so it can be a different government. Then again, the textbooks can be changed. So with respect to who built it. But the point is, if you see here, if we are approaching this with respect to science and logical thinking, if we say that the angle of the Qutub Minar is such that it is with respect to the latitude of Delhi and Tropic of Cancer, tilt of Earth and tilt of Moon. The moment you say that, then definitely it will break the concept that it was built by Mughals, because as per Mughals, the Earth is flat. Earth is not circular. So therefore, there is no tilt for Earth, there is no tilt for Moon. So therefore, it is breaking the complete thing that it is built by Mughal. So that was what the historians were trying to do. Second thing, what is being tried to do is, the science people who are experts and ASI people say that the Qutub Minar is tilting, the foundation is bad. So the way to tackle this is when we are trying to tackle through science, through logical thing, there is these stories, even if we fix it, it cannot be changed, one thing. Second thing is, the moment when we say that, okay, there are 13 windows at 13.33 degrees, it is in a spiral structure, then there is a, even there are other things about Qutub Minar as well. I would suggest you to refer to his book he has written, Glimpses of Time, I believe. So when we try to say all these things to a child, definitely we will have a better stand compared to ASI, better stand compared to historians. And second thing is, the moment we say this, the natural question that comes is, my God, this is so wonderful. Definitely a great architect must have built it. And then the history will proceed. What we are
that is
history before science.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying, because this is a new, very good research done by Abhishek through astronomy, establishing the astronomical evidences.
Yes.
That is why I'm requesting that he may study Varamihir's books and his writings, and somewhere, because he is the greatest astronomer and a research person.
Yeah.
So he can connect it with that and establish, because he has already established the astronomical aspect of the Qutub Minar construction, and he can take it further towards Varamihir to work to establish the connectivity between them.
Right.
Put it in a more concrete way. That is why I'm saying.
Yes. So to add
more deep study is required on Varamihir's writings.
Right. So Varamihir has not only, so if we are referring to the book that Varamihir writes, I don't remember the name of the book, but the content of the book is not just within astronomy, it goes to even in terms of policy making, in terms of the Niti Shastra, etc. So it's an excellent book. Varaha, I forgot the name of the book.
Yeah, he has written so many books on different topics, and he has mathematical books are also there.
Yes.
He has many topic he has handled, but his main focus was astronomy.
Yes, right.
Yeah, that is right.
Yes.
Good. Very good. Thank you very much for the wonderful sharing of these slides and also the explanation given by you. So very informative and very attentive. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Savithri, madam, you can, please.
Yeah, you can move.
Unmute, please.
Sorry. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, sir. It was very informative. Dhanyawadaha once again. So, in English, thank you consists of 8 letters that form the most meaningful words in the English vocabulary. So, I call Srimati Mathangi to deliver the word of thanks.
Dhanyawadaha Savithri.
Srimati Mathangi is a teacher by profession, had specialized in SEN education and had taught specially for special needs children, had learned Sanskrit both in school and college, has much interest in Sanskrit language, had completed Povita in Sanskrit. Now I call Srimati Mathangi to deliver the word of thanks.
Dhanyawadaha Savithri. Kumari Savithri इत्यनेन कार्यक्रमः एतावत् सुन्दरः प्रस्तुतः. Dhanyawadaha. Such a flawless anchoring and much impressed by the way you had presented the program. Thank you so much, Savithri. ईश्वरस्य प्रार्थना शरीरबलं मानसबलं च आनयति. धन्यवादः श्रीमती रानी चित्रा सुन्दरं प्रतिपादनार्थम्. धन्यवादः मुरलीजी सुभाषितं बहुमूल्यं श्लोकं कृते. कुमारी साइप्रिया ने स्वागत संबोधन सुंदरम ढंग से प्रस्तुत किया। भगवद गीता पाठस्य मूल्यानि उपदिशति। धन्यवादः डॉक्टर सुश्रुता सार्थक रूपेण प्रस्तुत्य. Since sir you presented it in a very beautiful way, thank you so much. This session always reminds us the values of life, which is very important. Thank you, Dr. Sushruta. Bhagavan Shiva samsarat ashubham nashayati ubhau bhaginibhyam Shiva Panchaksharam spashtataya kritva atmanam gayanti sma. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you, Leisha and Teisha, for the wonderful rendition. I could see two Bala Tripura Sundaris singing so well in front of us. Thank you, Leisha and Teisha. It was so beautiful. Etadrisham bodhapradam satram anekaha bahumulyaha suchanaha dattaha asmakam bharatam vishwa ganitasya prasarane agrani asti. Such an enlightening session. Thank you for the wonderful session, Shri Sainath ji. Through your speech, we realize Ganita is a precious part of India's heritage and culture. And also Ganita, architecture, astronomy are also sacred. Clear explanation you had given. Through your presentation today, again, it is a proud moment for being born in this holy nation. And this nation has abundance of intelligence in all fields. Once again, thank you very much, sir, for the beautiful session. Thank you, Shri Sainath ji. Dhanyavadaha Sivakumar Aiyer, Shanti Mantra Path karenge. Etadrishasya adbudasya कार्यक्रमस्य आयोजनार्थं विशाले कृष्णन जी को हार्दिक आभार धन्यवादः. कार्यक्रमस्य दूरवाणी प्रसारणे महतीं सहयोगं कृत्वा सुन्दरकृष्णन जी इत्यस्मै हार्दिकम् आभारं धन्यवादः. A special thanks to Varshini also. Sarvesham धन्यवादः.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, okay, now we are almost at the end of the session. First of all, I'm so happy to have this opportunity to be here, to be the part of this session. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I hope you all like this. So now we are Shanti Mantra. It's a chant for peace, particularly as found in the ancient scriptures. So now let's end our program with the Shanti Mantra. Shanti Mantra by Sivakumar Aiyer ji.
सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. धन्यवादः. शुभरात्रि.
धन्यवादः.